I swear, the most frustrating thing about this build is trying to find stuff. I swear I had my crimp tool sitting on the bench over there 10 minutes ago. Now I have no idea where it is, and I can't do this without it, and so I gotta stop what I'm doing and completely look through the garage again trying to find out where the hell I put it. Oh, that's right here. That was not staged. Oh my god. All right, guys, I'm going to get back started here. It is February 2nd, and just registered for High Sierra Flying 2021. Signed up for the stall drags in this airplane. So game on by October. It's only February, but by October this thing's got to be dialed in and race ready. We're also looking to be at Reno in September. So looks like I'm going to have plenty of time to get through test phase, make modifications if necessary, and get it performing top notch. But today I'm going to get back at putting the cowling together and cleaning up the side panels, get those ready to go in and mounted, and hopefully get that done today. So I keep working through the stuff on the whiteboard like I mentioned in the last two videos, and hopefully have this thing ready for inspection here at the end of the month. So I'm gonna get back to it. All right, so I got everything lined up, drilled it all for the cam locks. Currently have the Quicos in place holding it. And basically there's 7 per side. See, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So I gotta put those in. And I did work out how this is gonna work here with the overlap of all 3 pieces. I left the backing plate a little short on this piece, so that the backing plate on this piece could run up to this piece. So that's going to be cam locked in, and that corner of this one's going to hold all 3 of them down. We're planning on that ahead of time. So looks pretty darn good, and you can now see that the radiator is centered. It does have, the scoop is a little lower on this side right here. That's what I'm gonna cut that and raise the scoop up so we have the full radiator exposed. And then you can kind of see how the muffler sits right behind that and creates a nice smooth transition because of the shape of the muffler. So I think the front end looks a lot better now that we got that all squared up, and it's actually sitting, there's still that U-clamp that's pushing out on that right there, but it'll move over about another 1/8 of an inch. And everything's lined up over here. All right, I couldn't resist. I'd throw the propeller on real quick. See how it all looks. Man, I wish I could do the whole cowling in carbon fiber. It looks so awesome with this. This propeller from NR is just really nicely done with the carbon fiber cone and the prop. It's really good looking propeller. So that would look really good with a carbon cowl. But it also looked real good with the black cowl. So that's what we're going to do there. It's hard sometimes to sit here and look at it and not think about how much work went into it and just be amazed that it's to this point. So those of you that haven't watched or don't remember from the cowling episode when I was shaping and making this cowling, it is a one-of-a-kind cowling. And that's because it's shorter. It doesn't stick out as far as the current cowling by about, I think it's about 3 inches shorter actually. So in order to use the Model 7 cowling, I would have had to put a huge prop extension or even move the engine further forward. And it didn't clear the top of the cowling with the engine, with the valve cover and all the stuff on top of the engine. So I would have had to modify the top piece as well. It would have looked kind of Frankenstein-y. So this is actually a combination of 2 different Kitfox cowlings. This is the Model 7 boot cowl back here. And then the front half is off of the older Model 5 short Rotax cowl before they moved the engine further forward. And that short Rotax cowling was actually too short. So I combined the two, and then I had to match the body lines from the 5, the short 5, into the Model 7 boot cowl because it's just smooth. It doesn't have any body lines. So that you'll see it more when it's painted, but there's a definitive body line here. I have a bump that goes the full length. It's really a nice feature on that older cowl. And I carried that into the boot cowl. The other things I had to do to make it work out, so I enlarged the spinner bump to match the spinner size. That came out really nice. I also shrank the openings down to match, again, the spinner size. So these openings are slightly smaller than they were on that original 5 cowling. And let's see, then the whole bottom of the cowling's been modified pretty drastically to fit the Yamaha engine and to accommodate the radiator. Still a little bit of work to do there actually. All right guys, so I'm fitting this, just doing the final cut work on this carbon fiber kick panel. See if I can get some light in here so you can see it. It fits that bottom floor perfectly now by changing the shape of it. Really came out pretty darn good. All right, good morning guys, it's February 5th. Got the kick panels for the console done. They're super shiny, which they're almost too shiny because the rest of the carbon work I have in the airplane is kind of a satin finish. This is gloss. But anyway, they end up weighing less than the aluminum ones by 0.1 pounds per side, so 0.2 pound savings additional. They came out really nice. I got the flare on them, and the angle came out pretty good. I had to repair one side on one of them just to fix some pinholes. But they came out good, so those are going to go in, and I got to drill the holes to mount them, but they'll get installed here. And then we're going to move on to the cowling, get the cowling knocked out. Lots of paint work and carbon fiber work this week. So I got to fix the scoop for the radiator. Once that's done, I can get the the cowling into the booth for the epoxy primer, finish up any final body work on it, and then start shooting the color on that. I also need to sand down the wingtips and reshoot these. They came out pretty rough. It's almost like a sandpaper finish on it. And this was the first thing I painted with the urethane or aerothane paint. And I didn't have enough reducer, I believe is what the issue is with it. So I'm going to go ahead and sand them down and get rid of that roughness and get them ready for another coat. And then I'm also going to use the flattener because they came out way too shiny to butt up against the polytone black. So these will get flattener along with the cowling. Alright, so got the cowl modified, the carbon laid up. So I did it from the back side, so this will need some sanding and some fill work, and then I'm going to lay one more layer on top from the outside. But what I'm going to do this morning first is cut this all to fit around the radiator. I extended the scoop a little bit so that that will tuck up above the radiator. And I had a little overwrap with the carbon, so I'm going to cut that, make it all fit, and then use some superfill to clean up this edge and let that dry, and then we'll come in with one layer of carbon over the top of that. I'm kind of watching the weather. It's nice out, but it's windy. It's kind of a pain in the butt to put the paint booth up when it's windy, so I'm going to see how that settles out this morning. If it calms down, then I may get the parts that need another coat of black. I sanded everything yesterday, so these side pieces here for the cowling. I did the wing tips, they're all sanded down ready for another coat. I need to sand the top side of the flaperons, and then those can get a coat too. And these ones here we'll use the flattener on, and the flaperons will go without the flattener. So looks like I've got a full day if I want to get everything done. I was able to get some work done on the exhaust system last night. Turn on the light back here. And those of you who are professional welders, don't judge me too harshly on my stainless welding, but I got that welded up. It's going to go in the muffler here, and then the other part I got welded up, which was a bit of a struggle, is this 90-degree piece here. So that's all ready to go on, and once those two are together, then I just go work the tailpipe out, and then how the muffler is going to hang still from the firewall. Still got to figure that out. So that's on the agenda today. I don't know how many of you guys have done much stainless welding, but it is a different animal for sure. I'm learning as I go. Hopefully these parts, they're not professional pretty with stacked dimes like I'd like them to be, but hopefully they're structurally sound. I did set up a back purge system, and that really ate through my my gas. So now I'm down to, I think, 200 pounds left on the gas. So I've got about one session of welding left before I need to take the tank in and get it refilled. So I'm going to go ahead and I got to cut this down a little bit, and then it's going to go in the end here and get welded in there. And then I got to do the tailpipe section as well. And Trying to decide whether to do another V-band clamp coming out. It just adds weight, but that way I can mess around with the tailpipe setup. I can just do a little tailpipe that comes out and dumps, or I can try this really long tailpipe version that I have mocked up on there. For starters, I'm just going to do an elbow and a dump. Alright, so I got the Borla all done and put it on and tested the sound of it with a dB meter. Then I put this Cowling muffler on and tested that one, and the Cowling was actually a little bit quieter, and it's about 5 pounds lighter, so I might start with this one. Hi guys, good morning. So I got the paint booth up again. Just finished the initial sanding on the last coat of carbon fiber on the cowling. I've got a little bit of micro that I put in here just to fill in some spots. That's going to be sanded down next, and then that's ready for primer. And booth up over here. Flaperons are currently in the paint booth. Got a test piece of aluminum over there. Just mixed up the Aerothane Dakota Black with a 3 parts to 2 parts reducer, and I'm going with a slightly smaller needle this time to see if I can get a little bit better spray pattern. So that's going to go ahead and go in the gun. I'm going to do a test batch on some aluminum out there, and then I'm going to get in the booth, hopefully knock out those flaperons. And this is with the gloss, and then I've got the rest of the parts for later today that are going to get the flattener. So I'll put the flattener in, do a test piece with that. I'm actually using these kick panels as the test piece on the back side. This looks terrible because I didn't clean it and sprayed it outside, but this is the gloss. Nice and shiny. Like I said, there's tons of specks in it. That's what happens if you don't have a paint booth. It looks awful. But that's the shiny one. This is the kick panel with the flattener. And that was about 1 part flattener to 3 parts paint. It's really flat, like too flat. You put it up against the black and it's flatter than the polytone. So I need to do maybe half of that and test it again. So I'll probably do that in the morning and get a tester done, and maybe while that's drying, try to get the epoxy primer portion done on the cowling. All right, so I got the cowling pretty much done as far as it being ready for paint. It's all sanded down, ready for the primer. I finished the modifications to the bottom. The only thing I need to do still is I'm going to go ahead and put a cam lock right here just to bring that piece up. And I'll probably have to trim this back a little bit right here around the muffler. And then also on this side, if I end up using this muffler, I'm going to have to trim this back right here also so the muffler can slide up in there. If you pull this up, it moves that in so it lines up just about perfectly in the center. Raise the scoop up so you have full exposure of the radiator now. Back off so you can see what it looks like. The cowling primed pieces are out. To be perfectly honest, they look much better than I was expecting as far as the bodywork goes. I am seeing a lot more pinholes than I thought I was going to see. I thought I got most of those, but you can see like these little areas here, a little bit of pinhole here and there, a couple of spots that didn't show up with voids. So I'm going to have to go over all that. I did tape off the overlap, so you still have the carbon. I'm going to leave that carbon. So those need to be basically sanded down 400 grit, get all the areas that have a little roughness out of it. So I'm going to go ahead and put the cowling on just to see what it looks like together, see how the body lines look, see what the body condition looks like. And then the other thing I did was another test shot. So this flat black was using a lot of the flattener, and then this was my next version, which is much glossier. And while this was sitting out, it started raining, so that's why that looks weird. But it's a little too glossy, so I put a little bit more flattener in, and I went ahead and painted because I'm running out of time. So what I've got in the booth right now is the wingtips and the cowling pieces for the tail. So by adding a little flattener, I'll show you real quick. Here's the flatness of the polytone, and then there's your gloss. There's the flat, that's too flat. Gloss is too glossy, so I'm shooting for something kind of in between those two. The wingtips and the tail cowling pieces or tail fairing pieces are in the paint booth. I added a little bit more flattener from that sample that I just showed. So I should have something in between those two, which hopefully will be acceptable match with the polytone. The cowling came out pretty nice. As far as the body work on it, I'm actually really happy with it. What I didn't expect is to see as many pinholes as I have. So when you're working on that cowling with it being black, it's really hard to see those pinholes. Plus they fill it full of the dust from when you're sanding it. Even when I cleaned it, I know there was a couple spots that I knew I was going to have to go back to. But after putting that first coat of white down, man, all those pinholes popped up, and there's a lot of them. Overall, I'm pretty happy with it, and we'll get some more body work done on it. And my next stretch, we'll have to do another paint session, and it's going to be a 2 or 3 dayer because I'll have to do the epoxy primer again, let it dry, and then come in with the color coats. And with this big a surface, those color coats are going to be really key to get done with the right temperature and the right consistency with the paint and the right flattener. So I'm going to be doing a lot of tests with the mix because the flattener mix that I used, I don't have a formula for it. I just eyeballed it today because I was running out of time. So it's really going to be important next time to put some flattener in, test it, match it to what I've already done, add a little bit more until I get that same level of shine that I want out of it to match the polytone. Alright, so the wingtip is on. Doing this lens for the landing light was a real pain in the butt. And I still have a slight gap right here that I'm not happy with, but that'll get a piece of clear tape over it. That's really the only way to do it. All 4 sides all the way around need to be trimmed because of how ununiform the wingtip is. So again, stemming back to a little bit unhappy with the wingtips on these. Just the quality of them is real difficult to work with. But anyway, so I got the lights on, they're installed. The wingtips partially on, I gotta put the other screws in. But let me show you real quick. Come over here on the controls. And we go master, nav light, strobe light, landing light, and then we'll do wig-wag also. So get all the light features going at once. Do the strobe on the landing light. And then you got the strobe and the position lights. And hopefully I got that correct. That's left side red. Always remember that because it's not right side red. You think that would be easier to remember, R and R. It's not. So anyway, turn those off. There we go. So one side done. Guys, that took 3 hours to do that. That's ridiculous. Most of that was just trimming that piece of plastic to fit over the landing light. So I'll film time lapse on the next one, get the next one going and installed. Over here, the only thing is I got to pull one of the wire runs out of this side and rewire it because I wasn't happy with how that turned out. Alright guys, so now I decided to rewire one of these runs of wire because it was too short and I couldn't reach the plug on both ends. Something I knew I was going to have to do. So I'm going to go ahead and get that wrapped up right now before I start in on this other wingtip. So right now I'm just labeling the wires for the new plug. This is the old wire here. This will be the new wire. It runs all the way through and has a little more length so I can reach the plug on the other end and run it all the way up to the landing light here. I also need to rewire the landing lights a bit long, so I'm going to shorten all that up, just kind of clean up the wiring. The reason I'm doing the plugs on both ends is so I can change the wings out if necessary, and hopefully just put another set of lights in the other wing so that I can just unplug at that end and plug them in. But if that becomes cost prohibitive, I have plugs on this end also. I can pull the lights, put them on the other wingtips, and plug it in. Alright, so the wingtips are on. This one came out much better than the other side. I'm much happier with this one. And the trick with this, guys, if you're doing this, I like to add little tips if I can. Put it up on top and mark the sides left and right. Trim those down first and let it overlap on the top. Get your width right first. Then you can set this edge to match the leading edge. And then trim the tops and the bottom to get it set where you want. There was such a distortion in the wingtip where it comes in right here. I actually had to put a washer underneath just to keep it lined up on this. So, I mean, it's about as good. You can see the wingtip, how it curls under right there. I mean, there's just not a whole lot you can do about that. I mean, that's the shape of that it comes from the factory. So, a lot of body work would need to be done to make these completely match the wing, which, you know, I plan on doing it out of carbon fiber, so I'll just make this a plug at some point, and I might change the shape of them, do a drop or a winglet or something. So anyway, those are done. All the lights work. I got the wig-wag going on the landing lights. That's really cool. Didn't have that on my old plane, so that's pretty awesome. I also hooked up the fuel lines, and I'll show you over here. So the wings are all attached, the fuel lines, pitot, everything hooked up over here. So that's done. I still have to hook up the pitot out at the pitot mast. So there's a little bit to do there. But everything's pretty much buttoned up there. So let's go over here and get some stuff crossed off the board. Okay, so let's cross some stuff off. We got the fuel lines of the wing. Wing tips. Tail wheels on. It's the mall one that's going to be changed later, but for now that's what I've got because I don't have anything from TK1. So we're going with that. Redid that, and that's a rewiring of the nav light, so that was done. It was actually the landing light. Still waiting on the OAT probe. The muffler is just about done, and the cowling just needs a little bit more work. And like I said earlier, I got some of that little spot putty, so I'm gonna play around with that tomorrow, see how that works out. Landing lights, done. The other thing I'm working on is a servo limiter for the Autopilot. I know some of you guys this is way back, several episodes back. But here's the issue. If you go full throw on these, at least on the aileron or flaperon, there's no way you can go over center because the servo just doesn't travel far enough. I mean, you've got at least 15 degrees. But when I was setting these servos, the power of the servo is pretty strong. So much so that it can actually move this mount that's pretty sturdy. It's actually flexing the frame plate. But it has enough to have this pop over like that. And that is 100% not acceptable to have that be able to do that. In this case, you're still functional. It just moves the servo into a reverse mode, which if you engage the Autopilot, it's going to correct to the right and make it worse and correct further to the right until you're upside down. I don't know what point it kicks off, but that's not acceptable to me. So I'm going to put, there's a screw hole right here. I'm going to put a stud coming out that limits that so that it can't go past there. So if that motor was to try to run over for whatever reason, it would hit that and it mechanically can't go past that point. The forward portion, it can't just because it would hit itself. Sorry, hit itself right here. So you don't have to do anything on this side, just on the back side. And the same thing on the elevator servo. So I'll have to climb back in the tail and do that same thing back there. So what I did here is I put this post on right here. Basically that comes up and right at where I'm hitting the stop on the aileron, side stop on the control stick, it just comes up to that on the servo. So it can no longer go over center. I'm going to do the same thing on the back one. And it's basically an Allen screw with a lock washer and a spacer washer with a nylon bushing. And it's nice and rigid. So there's no way that's going to motor past that. So I think that's going to give me a little bit more peace of mind when I go to use these servos for the Autopilot, having a limiter on that. Alright, so the flaperons have been mounted. The other one positioned facing up just so it's less of a hazard to run into it in the garage. It's right in front of the door, so one of those things to be aware of. I'd like to grab like a pool noodle or something and put it across that back edge. Probably be a good idea. I've in the past run into these and they leave a pretty good gash in your head. So next up is to hook up the control arm port, and we'll get that done here and we'll cross it off the list. All right, so here we're setting up the push-pull tubes. Got the ends on them. One side uses a bolt and a nut, and the other one uses this T-handle as a safety clip so you can disconnect it from the flaperon when you fold the wings. Now we use the wooden blocks, same ones we used to set the control horns. We're going to mount those up on the Flaperon and cut. The front block is 2 3/16 inch, so we're going to cut that and then use a level to set the right angle on the Flaperon. Alright guys, so the Flaperons are on, installed, both sides. I started working on the rigging and it's a little more involved than I have time for. It's not just setting the linkage length on the push-pull tubes. It involves going through, I got to disconnect the flap lever and set everything in here because I don't know how it was done by the guy who I bought the kit from, because he had all that stuff connected. So I need to go through and rig that whole system to get everything set up right. And the kind of the red flag was that I had this right side one completely compressed or adjusted to full shortness. Had to make an adjustment over here, and I'm just starting to chase stuff. So I need to go back to the beginning and set all those so that they everything's right. So I'll have to come back to that. So what I did over here, went ahead and crossed off the Flaperons because they are on, but I rigged the controls and set the washout in the wing. So I added a couple things there. All right, so the supplies I'm going to go to town to get. I got some screws I'm going to get, but what I need to tackle on this cowling now is, if you can see, like right here, it's focusing, there you go. See those little pinholes there? So originally I was thinking about using superfill to fill those up because it's so easy to sand down. But I talked to a friend who recommended using just an automotive filler putty because it dries faster and it also will get down into those holes better. So I'm gonna run down and get some of that, and then I could get that, hopefully all those holes filled up today. All right, so I just wanted to do an update on the cowling. With the coat of primer on there, it came in at 9.4 pounds. The Model 7 cowling I had was 19 pounds. So throughout doing all the backing, carbon fiber, the patchwork, and all the hardware that's on it, it gained just under a pound. So imagine put a little bit more, like a 0.2 or something in paint. But that's the final weight, is under 10 pounds for that carbon cowling, which is fantastic. So my Model 7 cowling at 19 pounds did have some repair work on it, so I don't know what the stock one weighs in at, but that is the other one I was going to use, so that's what I'm comparing it to. I'd imagine that the stock one's probably right around 16 to 17, somewhere in there. I don't know. You guys that have a Model 7 cowling, pull it off and weigh it and let me know where it weighs in. But this is 9.4 pounds, and I think that's pretty darn good. So I'm gonna work on filling all the pinholes, get it sanded and ready for the paint coat, and then that part will be done. We'll get that crossed off the board. Basically, I spent most of the day doing this cowling and kind of cleaning up the shop. So that's what the pinhole looks like when it's filled and sanded with this spot putty. It's actually coming out really nice. I'm happy with that. So I'm gonna also work a little bit more on that. And then I gotta go back to work, and then we're going on whole family break, so it'll be a while before I get another video up. So I was hoping to get as much of this stuff done today, and really hoping that after my next session of working on it, it's done. So yeah, that's where we're at. All right, guys, so right here behind me is the top cowl. Just finished sanding it down with 400 grit. It looks amazing. So I used some spot putty to fill these pinholes. I'll show a shot of what it looks like when it fills it. It does a great job. There's just very little flaws left, and I'm real happy with how this cowling came out. It's been, God, so much work. It's a project in itself. Part 3 of final assembly. I know you guys are, saying when are you going to get done, probably, but there will be a part 4 coming up after this one, where we'll cover the paint on the cowling, the final rigging of the aircraft controls, and then the final install of stuff like the windshield and the muffler. That's about it. I just got to put the stuff on it now. There is some fairing work that needs to be done. I'm doing this, I'll get into this maybe on a dedicated video, but this is the jury strut, and I'm gonna fair these out with a balsa wood structure and then wrap it in carbon fiber. It'll be real lightweight, and I watched a video the other day that showed how much drag round bar creates, and it's 9 times greater drag than an airfoil shape. So everywhere I can reduce that drag, there will be attention to the landing gear at some point. Probably not right off the get-go because I want to go ahead and get flying, but I'm going to do a lot of carbon fiber fairing work around the gear legs, the shocks, and then the cabane, where I'm actually going to do that belly pod to help fair that in there. So anyway, I'm rambling. I wrap this one up here. Thanks for watching, guys. If you liked it, hit the like button. Hit the notification bell if you want to know when the next one posts, and always appreciate you subscribing. So see you on the next one.